All right, sharing my screen now, guys.
All right. I just wanted to introduce Sam to Ashraf, Chris, and everyone else who joins us later. This session, it'll be about how we can become solo stakers, why that's important in the Ethereum ecosystem, and the advice that Sam has after conducting numerous workshops and AMAs. In fact, he has a very busy schedule these days because there's lots of exciting things happening in the ecosystem. So yeah, looking forward to pick Sam's brain and also understanding how we can get started with solo staking right from this call itself, because I think it will be a participatory workshop style call. So looking forward to it. Over to you, Sam.
Awesome. Thank you for the introduction, Sid. So, hey everyone. So, my name is Sam, also known as Stakesaurus, and I am a Lido Community Lifeguard. And basically, what this means is that I work on initiatives to expand the talent pool of Ethereum solo stakers and home stakers across Asia. And today, I'm going to talk to you guys about becoming an Ethereum solo staker without having any technical background. Even though I know this community tends to have the technical background, but yeah, I design all of my resources, open source them, catered towards non-technical people. And to highlight today's topic, I'm going to talk about the Lido CSM of how you don't need a technical background, and also you don't require 32 ETH, which is a very high barrier to entry on the capital requirement side. And because of this reduced collateral amount, you on the other side of the equation, you actually boost your rewards rate. But before we dive into the good part, just wanted to do a very quick recap on some basics, starting from the differences between centralized and decentralized systems for the benefits of our viewers who are less technical. Right. So starting from centralized systems, we know this as, applications or things that have a single point of failure. Yeah. The owner of this system determines what is reality. Yeah. And the examples of this would be like banks or the current internet. We use the banking system today wholeheartedly. We trust them wholeheartedly, but it requires this level of trust because the owners of the banks, the controllers of this system, can change the reality at any point in time, right? Whereas decentralized systems, there is no single point of failure. There is a distributed set of servers and nodes where we can tolerate 1/3 of failed nodes, and more than 2/3 of these nodes, right, would determine the reality collectively. An example of this would be blockchains. But if any 2/3 amount of these nodes, right, can determine reality, what's stopping an individual or someone from pretending to be 1,000 different nodes, right? And this leads us to the question of who gets to vote, right? Because if one person can pretend to be 1,000 nodes or 1,000 different entities without a significant cost, at best, we have a distributed system. We don't have a decentralized system yet. So in order to move from distributed to decentralized, what do we need? We need something called a Sybil resistance mechanism. How do we convert normal nodes into validator nodes? And for Ethereum's proof of stake mechanism, stakers or node operators have to put 32 ETH at stake, right, to transform their normal nodes into validator nodes. Yeah, and then they will have the right to vote for what determines reality in a very simple way of describing. All right. And this also prevents a nothing at stake voting type within this decentralized system. All right. And this brings us to the role of validators on the Ethereum network. In a highly simplified way, right, validators do two jobs. The first is they process transactions. The second, they secure transactions after processing them. Let me just move this over here. Okay, right. And to walk through in the process in a very simplified way, under the process transactions step, amongst all of the validators in the Ethereum network, at every block, one random validator will be chosen to propose a block. And when they propose a block, all of the transactions within the block will be proposed alongside. So the proposer will say, hey guys, everyone else, all other validators on the Ethereum network, this transaction is valid. I've checked it against my own history of the blockchain, and it does not contradict with this history. So I propose to add it to the blockchain, append it to the Ethereum blockchain. All of the other validators, they will serve the role as a testers. They will say, yeah, we checked and confirmed that these transactions in this new block does not contradict with any previous transactions in our records. And when more than 2/3 of these validators, proposers, and the testers agree on the new transactions not contradicting with their own version of history, we achieve something called consensus. And after reaching consensus, after reaching 2 rounds of consensus, this transaction is now finalized. Yeah, finalization means that it cannot be changed anymore. Yeah, and any attempt to violate consensus or finalization will result in penalties in the form of slashing. In the most adverse scenario, when you really want to revert a finalized transactions, what you need to do is to first control and then burn 1/3 of all stake ETH to revert this transaction. Yeah, and even then, it is not a confirmed thing that you can actually revert this transaction. Let me just check out the chat. Okay. All right. So, oops. Right. So, because of these 2 very important jobs, it is not difficult to understand why having more solo stakers on the Ethereum network is equivalent to more independent verifiers and enforcers of transactions, of information, of consensus. And hence, it leads to greater security, resilience, and censorship resistance, all of which provides value to the Ethereum block space. And yet, the percentage of solo stakers and home stakers today is estimated at only 6.5%. The range ranges from like 1% to 19.2% or 18.9% as of the latest data. But through some machine learning techniques that Rated Network performed, we have more than 50% confidence in level that this number is around 6.5%. All right. So let's now take a look at the rewards and the penalties of Ethereum validators. So there are 2 broad categories of validator rewards and 4 types of rewards. Yeah. So under consensus layer rewards, we have the issuance rewards and the sync committee rewards. Under execution, we have transaction tips and MEV rewards. For issuance and sync committee rewards, these come directly from the Ethereum network, issued as inflation. Think of it as inflation. But this is offset largely by the base fee that's paid by users. So just to recap, for every transaction you make on the Ethereum network, there is a base fee and a priority fee. Yeah. The base fee is paid, it's like a fixed cost, and the priority fee, you pay it if you want to speed up your transactions. So the base fee that everyone pays when using the Ethereum network is burnt, like removed from supply. Yeah, and it largely offsets the inflation part of the consensus layer rewards. Yeah, and this amounts to around 2.4% plus 3%. Yeah, sync committee is a random occurrence for Ethereum validators, right? And it's to simplify it, is a way for light clients to work, without going too deep into the logic. All right. So this is why there's talk about Ethereum being deflationary. It is because the inflation part is offset by the base fee. Yeah. And then on the execution layer rewards, we have transaction tips. Yeah. This is what users pay to speed up the transactions. It represents a direct fee paid by users. Right. And there's also an indirect fee paid by users in the form of MEV rewards for submitting ARM-optimized transactions. So as you can see, even though the numbers are small, 2.4% plus 0.3 plus 0.3 plus 0.3%, and total of 3.3% annual rewards rate, even though the numbers are small, but these are in real terms, it's not inflationary. All of these come from somewhere, you know. Execution layer rewards is obvious, you know, it comes from the users, either directly or indirectly. And then for the consensus layer rewards, the inflation is offset also by the users. So you can think of it as the users are all are paying for the rewards earned by the validators for the work done in processing and securing transactions on the Ethereum network. Right. So then now let's look at the penalties. There are 3 types of penalties, right? I've ranked them in order of severity. So the least severe is missed duties. So this is when you just go offline, you know, you miss like maybe 1 hour, 2 hours, even 1 day of duties. The impact from these missed duties in terms of monetary penalties is very low. It's 80% of what you would otherwise have earned as rewards. So if you're offline for a day and then you come online for another day, you would be 20% above water. Right? And the way to prevent this is very simple. Just keep your validator node synced and running 24/7. I implement a monitoring and alert system to alert you when your validator node is down. And because we are now on a proof of stake consensus mechanism, so we no longer require huge electricity consumption. So you can comfortably keep your very low power device up and running 24/7, 365 days a year, and it'll cost you around 100 USD per year. Heat is minimal, sound noise is also minimal. Now, moving on, we have the next type of penalties called slashing. The impact of this is high, is 1 out of 32 of your total effective balance. So if you run 1 validator key, you stake 32 ETH, you lose 1 out of 32 if your 1 validator key gets slashed. If you run 64, it's 2 out of 64, right? So the ratio is always 1 out of 32. And then you'll be kicked out of the network, which means you'll be offline for however long it takes for you to exit the network. If there is no queue, maybe 2 to 3 days. If there's a long queue, maybe a week, 2 weeks. Yeah. So yeah, we try to prevent slashing as much as possible. The most common cause of slashing is actually due to mistakes, honest mistakes, you know, and it's due to something called double signing. It is when you have more than one instance of your validator key online at the same time, and then they sign the same block. They attest to the same block. Yeah, and the Ethereum network thinks that you're trying to obfuscate your vote, or you're trying to be malicious and try to vote for 2 different versions of the blockchain history. Yeah, so the way to prevent this is make sure you only have 1 instance of each validator key online at any one point in time. Keep your keys very secure, follow slashing protection best practices. These are already very well documented. And it's actually quite difficult for you to be slashed. You need to be very deliberate, or you need to be very dishonest. Yeah. The most severe type of penalties is something called correlation penalties. The impact is very high. It can be up to your entire stake. And how this happens is if you go offline or if you are slashed together with a large portion of the entire Ethereum validator network, you can lose up to your entire stake, and the severity increases along with the proportion. If you are slashed together with 33% of the network, then you lose all of your stake. Yeah, this is a way to, for the Ethereum network to protect itself. Yeah, because if people if a large portion of the validator network wants to collude, right, then the network needs a way to recover itself. Or if a large part of the network goes offline, gets seized by regulators or by nation states, yeah, they need a way to keep the chain going, right? And the most effective way is to remove their stake with some mechanism. So how to prevent this? Avoid using supermajority clients. And this is why we see a lot of attention being spent on getting people to move away from Geth, which was a super majority to the extent of like 80%, 90% at some point in time. Now it's at 55% of market share, right? And avoid delegating stake to a large singular entity. Yeah, so I know this sounds like Lido, but it's not, because behind Lido, right, there is actually like 40 professional node operators and close to 300 total amount of node operators, including solo stakers and community stakers. Large single entities would be somewhat a staking entity that is a centralized system somewhere on the left, right? I mean, centralized exchange could be one of them, but I shall not talk too deep about that. Okay, right. So now let's take a look at the anatomy of an Ethereum validator node before we go into the hands-on session. In the most basic form, there are three major components that's highlighted. We have the execution client, the consensus client, and the validator client, right? The validator client will use the validator key stores to sign blocks and transactions, to propose and attest to them, right? And there are supporting software that we can also run to either make our lives easier or reduce the collateral required, or increase the security and decentralization of our own validator nodes further. Right. So the validator client uses the validator key source to sign transactions. The consensus client governs all of the consensus layer activities, right? And the execution client needs to replay or execute all of the transactions received by the validator node, all new transactions from new blocks received by the validator node. This is a process of verification that it needs to perform. All right. So having said that, even though there are a very small percentage of solo stakers today, it is actually the best time to get started because you need only 1.5 ETH today to get to become a solo staker. The collateral is very low compared to previously. And on the other side of the coin, you have a boosted rewards rate, more than 2 times more than the vanilla solo staking. So vanilla solo staking gives you 3.3%. If you use the Lido CSM, you get around 2.3 times more of that. You don't need any technical background required, and it is actually also a highly monetizable skill set.
Sam,
Yes.
I think Ashraf has a question on validator
please.
penalties
Go,
in the
go.
chat.
Yes. Let me just pull this up. Is there reporting on validator penalties? Curious to see how often these type of penalties are applied on the network. I believe there is a Dune dashboard somewhere. I might have come across it before. Yeah, let me find that and share it with you. So from my memory, if memory serves me well, all of the slashing events so far have been due to double signing because of mistakes. Yeah, because honest mistakes.
Honest mistakes. Okay.
Yeah. It's actually quite difficult to collude and then try to change the blockchain history. But having said that, it doesn't mean that it won't happen. It just means that the incentives are not big enough yet.
So I'll have a look at Dune. I'm a big Dune fan. I see Christian also shared a link right to .network. I'll have a look at that as well. Thanks, Christian.
Yeah, no, Rated's really good just to see. I think it basically shows all types of node operators, but might solo ones, including professional ones. But
yeah. Rated network is pretty awesome. All right, so yes, so where was I? I was at Lido CSM, right? So the Lido CSM is very capital efficient because where does the boosted rewards come from? Because there are two sources of rewards when using Lido CSM to run Ethereum validators. The 1.5 ETH that you provide, if you are in the early adoption list, it is converted into red STETH, and being STETH, it accrues rewards natively through bond rebasement. Yeah. And then for every bond that you provide, Lido will deposit 32 ETH to activate your validator key on your behalf. And because now you are the node operator for this 32 ETH, you get a share of the rewards, of the staking rewards generated from this 32 ETH. And we call this the node operator rewards. So if you add up the two components, yeah, you more than double your staking rewards as compared to solo stakers. Yeah, and this is also shows that the boosted rewards are sustainable and it is also real. It's not just printed out in air. Lido is not using the treasury to like incentivize node operators, right? Both sources of rewards are sustainable. Yeah, people are willing to pay for them, and hence why you will continue to get them over the long term. Second very appealing feature of Lido CSM is the MEV smoothing feature with professional operators. And this leads to CSM operators getting the highest median base rewards. So MEV rewards happen at random. It only accrues to the block proposer. Yeah. So for every 12 seconds, this is the Ethereum slot timing, a new block will be proposed, right? And the block contains all of the transactions. Yeah. All of the MEV rewards and execution, the priority fees goes to the block proposer. Yeah, so it can range from a very small amount to a very big amount. In terms of small amounts, it can be 0.001 ETH. Yeah, the big amounts can be like 100 ETH, 200 ETH, 300 ETH. Yeah, and because Lido has the largest pool of liquid staked ETH, the smoothing effect is the strongest. Yeah, we smooth out all the variability of it, and then hence why STETH has the highest median staking rewards rate. There's also a bulk discount mechanism on the ETH bond required for Lido CSM. The first key the bond for the first key for the early adoption period is 1.5 ETH, and then the second bond onwards is 1.3 ETH. For the fully permissionless period after the early adoption period, the initial bond required is 2.4 ETH, and then subsequent bonds will require 1.3 ETH. So not too much of a difference. It's just that the first key has a slightly higher requirement for after the early adoption period. There's also a very cool reward socialization feature where if you perform as a CSM operator above some minimum threshold, your rewards will be socialized with all others who perform above the threshold. And those who underperform, they will receive no node operator rewards, which means none of the orange part, but they will still receive the green part because they still provided the bond. Yeah, and the bond is in STETH. Right, so this is to disincentivize free riders without making it inaccessible for solo and community stakers with much less powerful hardware and a residential fiber internet connection. Right, so I mentioned that one of the reasons why it's a good time to be a solo staker is also because of the monetizable skill set, and these are just three of such examples. Simple DBT, Ether5 Solo Staker Program, and the OBO Gold Technic Credential are all examples of delegated of stake ETH delegations that's possible for solo and community stakers. So for example, Simple DBT, the program delegates between 80 to 500 validator keys to clusters of 7 node operators running distributed validators technologies. And they split, I think it was 7% of the node of the staking rewards with these operators. Yeah, and this require no bond at all. Yeah, so it's a nice, I think around 1.5K to 2K additional income per year for the solo staker, and they can use their existing hardware that they use for solo staking to participate in these programs. So it's so cool because it becomes opens up a lot of avenues for monetization from just having this skill set. Ether5 Solo Staker program is something similar. I think theirs was between 80 to 100 keys to clusters of 7. And then the OBO Gold Technique Credentials. This is still ongoing, but what they want to do is something similar to this, the direction taken by Simple DBT and Ether5. Right, let me pause here and check out the chat. What happens when someone's liquid stakes with Lido? Does ETH go into a pool waiting to be staked? Yes, that is in general, that is what happens. Yeah, because you need 32 ETH to spin up an Ethereum validator or to activate an Ethereum validator key store. on chain. Yeah. So what happens is between 1 to 32, it has to wait. They have to queue up. Yeah. But because Lido is like almost 10 million ETVL, right? So the flow rate, right, is fast enough such that the queuing period, right, or the effects of the queuing period, right, is minimal. How long would it take a solo staker to break even? Basically earn back 1.5 ETH in rewards. Okay, so this is where we have to come back to reality. Yeah, if you only stake 1.5 ETH, yeah, and even if I give you 2.3 times more rewards than 3.3%, yeah, you get around 7.5% maybe. Yeah, 7.5% on 1.5 ETH, right? It's around like $400 USD at today's price per year. The minimal price of staking hardware is around 800 USD. Yeah, so for small stakers, it is still a hurdle. I won't sugarcoat it. Even
Okay,
though
so
the
it's gonna
cost of
take
hardware is really so small now, after moving away from proof of work. But because of the economics, right? Small stakers, it still makes sense for them to liquid stake.
but it would take like a multi-year kind of time period.
Sorry, come again?
It sounds like it will take like a multi-year time period to earn back like
So
1.5.
it will make sense for someone with at least 4 ETH, and then you can break even in a year, in 12 months. But for people with more than 4 ETH, right, let's say like 8 ETH, 10 ETH, right, it makes sense for them to instead of liquid staking or just liquid staking, it makes sense for them to also learn how to solo stake and run their own validator nodes, which is honestly still a net win. We can solve for the small stakers as we go along. Someone solo stake, like, does that mean Lido's market share grow or it's not part of Lido mechanism? Okay, so think about it this way, right? Previously, before the Lido CSM, where does your ETH go to? Your ETH gets assigned or delegated to one of the 40 professional node operators, correct? Yeah. So the entire ST Ether TVL, right, is split into 40, right? Now with the Lido CSM, instead of delegating or assigning to professional stakers, we also assign to solo stakers. Yeah, so on that front, right, it neither grows nor shrinks. Okay, how Lido's market share will grow is because of the collateral that is required to be put up by the CSM operator. And the reason for the collateral, right, is because this is a permissionless module. With the professional node operators, they are staking their reputation. They are putting the name at stake. If anything happens, they have to be vetted, first of all, for quality, and it's very stringent. And second of all, if there's any mistakes or big mistakes or like malicious activities, like MEV stealing, then the consequences are like is dire, right? They'll be banned. Their names cannot be used for similar activities anymore. Yeah, but for permissionless modules, right, everyone's anonymous. We can't control who comes in and goes out. Hence why we need certain collateral to prevent underperformance or discourage underperformance and prevent MEV theft. Right. Okay, so just before we jump into the hands-on session, I'm gonna do a walkthrough. Maybe I'll do a speed run and then I'll open the floor for questions first. Those who can follow along, please feel free to. In the meantime, right, you can scan this QR code. It'll bring you to a Telegram channel. This is a community that I actively manage. Inside there, you'll find resources, support, and you can make new friends with other aspiring or existing solo stakers. Okay. Looking at this question, sorry, I missed this one. Have you seen any promising research on potential for additional incentives for smaller solo stakers? Tough. I mean, I've worked on okay, so Vitalik has two proposals around this. The first is rainbow staking. The second is orbit SSF. Rainbow staking, in essence, proposes to bifurcate the duties of Ethereum validators into heavy duties and light duties. The heavy duties will be your usual consensus stuff, you know, which block to choose in the event of a fork, you know, how to arrive at consensus, etc. The light duties will include things like censorship resistance mechanisms, or what they call censorship resistance gadgets. Yeah, and both types of operators, heavy and light, will have different metrics to optimize for in order to increase their rewards rate. Yes, thank you, Sid. Thanks for that. Yeah. Orbit SSF. Well, honestly, I'm also not too familiar with this, but from my limited understanding, right, it is how a way to reduce the active validator set per round or per epoch. Each epoch is 32 slots, around 6.4, 6.5 minutes. And you know, by reducing the active validators, right, the active voters within a slot, right, we can get to consensus much quicker. And when we get to consensus much quicker, we can there's opportunities to increase the demand side. And when demand side increases, right, there'll be more fees for everyone. Yeah. And similarly, there'll be the heavy operators or heavy voters and the light voters. The light voters tends to be solo stakers and community stakers. And the logic or the principle is that the more censorship resistance characteristics or property you can display, the higher your rewards should be. I mean, this is still very preliminary. Yeah, it's still in the research phase. Yeah, I mean, yeah, airdrops is one of the other examples. In Q1 this year, there were at least two projects that did this, Starknet and Omni, but the trend unfortunately did not continue. Otherwise, this would have been a very strong narrative. But yeah, we can't really just depend on airdrops, because these are one-off and it's not sustainable and renewable source of income for solo stakers. All right. Okay, if you guys are done with this, I will move on to setting up an Ethereum validator node from scratch for free using Google Cloud credits. I mean, I've already used up my credits, but let me just show you guys what you can do to practice. So if you just go onto Google and search for Google Cloud free credits, you can see that new customers get $300 in free credits by Google Cloud. You just have to sign up for a new Google Cloud account. I've already signed up. You do have to enter your credit card details, but you do not have to charge it. You will not be charged until your credits are all used up. Okay, so once you've created an account, and then you can go into the Google Cloud console. Just click the console. And this is where you can spin up your hardware, because you want to practice before committing to buying hardware, which costs at least 800 USD. And the way to do that is to create a virtual machine or virtual hardware. For the name of your virtual machine, you can name it to anything. I'll call it kernel CSM demo. Okay. You can choose any region, but US Central one is typically the cheapest. Keep your machine type to E2, which is a low-cost day-to-day computing type. For your RAM, you need at least 16 GB. I've tried with 8 GB, it works, but you have to use specific clients. So I'm going to go with 16 GB of RAM. And then we need to set the size of our disk. So under boot disk, we need to change it. I like to use the Ubuntu operating system. I'm most familiar with it. And then for version, I'll use the latest one under the x86 architecture. Boot disk type, on the mainnet, we do need SSD type of disk, but on testnet, it seems balanced persistent disk works fine. For size, we can set it to 250 GB because we're just doing it on the testnet. On the mainnet, you need 2 TB, 2000. Yeah, so yeah, it'll be super expensive if you do it, if you run a testnet validator on the Google Cloud. So see, so it's $122, $123 per month. And if you which gives you like more than 2 months of practice time. But if you try to run it on run mainnet on Google Cloud, it costs you $300 a month. So how much do you have to stake to break even on this? Yeah, so it always makes sense to buy your own hardware if you are serious about this, about going to mainnet. So moving back to 250 GB, some heuristics under identity and API access, we have to set it in a no service account, especially if you're on a free account, because otherwise there may be some restrictions on regions. Firewall, just select the first two boxes. This will allow you to access your monitoring endpoints in Grafana. Okay, now we have all of the settings done. Wait, what is this? Oh, I cannot have capital letters. Okay, now I can create this virtual machine. All right, we'll give it a few seconds for Google Cloud to spin up our VM. In the meantime, I'll show you what my guide looks like. So this is basically where I document all of my processes, all of my steps, from vanilla solo staking to using all of the interesting tools like Lido CSM. There's even Diva staking, there's Obo, there's SSV, if you're into this DVTs or distributed validator technologies. I also cover Puffer, the Fire, Stater, Rocket Pool, they're coming soon. There's also Stakewise if you want to spin up, your own liquid staking pool on the same hardware. Yeah, so yep. So this is all written from the perspective of a non-technical person. So I wasn't like a Linux system administrator. I wasn't a programmer. My background is in investments. So I had to make things very simple for myself, and then I started sharing with my friends, and then eventually opening it up to everyone. Yep. So what I'll be using is under the automation subpage, and then you have two options to choose from. Let's go with if Docker today. And for those of you who want to watch a dedicated video on this, I even have videos on it. Right. So let's see if our VM is ready. Okay, it is ready. And now we have to log in into our VM. What do? We click on this SSH button. Stay with the SSH in order to keep machine up and kind. Yeah, no, Lorena, you don't have to stay with the SSH session in order to keep the machine up and running. Your processors will run in the background, even if you are disconnected. Okay, now that we are logged in, first thing we got to do is to download the latest version of Eve Docker. So Eve Docker is an automation tool or abstraction tool to spin up all of the components, all of the services required to run an Ethereum validator. It is basically what converts your VM into an Ethereum validator. Okay, now we have to set some permissions on Docker. And then we have to exit the VM and re-log in to apply the changes. Okay, if you don't use Eve Docker, you have to, I'll show you what you have to do. You have to do this. Configure all of this manually. All of these steps manually. And this is just for the execution client. You have to do it the same for the consensus client and then the validator client. Yeah. Yeah, all of this. So pretty tedious. And not only that, you have your monitoring suite as well. Yeah. So Eve Docker takes care of all of that for you in a few simple steps. Okay, let's go back to Eve Docker. So I've re-logged in. Now I will have to install all the dependencies required for Eve Docker.
Sam, I think Aaron has a question on
Sure.
setting this up manually.
For manual hard mode, is it? Depends, man. How technically adept are you? If you're completely non-technical, it will take you a couple of weeks to like maybe like a month and a half to really get it all down. Yeah. It's because when you are non-technical, you're prone to typos. And even if it's the solution is staring at you in your face, right? You might be stuck on it for like a couple of days. Okay, what is the split between cloud setup and own hardware setup? Do most newcomers use cloud? Okay, so I would say most solo stakers use their own hardware because the economics force them to go down this this route. Those that use cloud, right, tend to be more technical. So it's those that want to scale up. And it's when they felt that the constraints of your residential fiber network, right, no longer fits their needs. You know, if they're running like 500 keys, you know, or like 1,000 keys, maybe it's not safe to even run it at home anymore, you know, because of security reasons, physical security, I mean. You know, if there's a burglar that comes in, if someone knows that they're running so many keys, right, then they need professional security. Okay, so I'm just gonna go along with the installation. So until recently, when I started telling people that they can use the cloud VMs to practice, right, I don't think many people did it. Right. Yeah, because to be honest, right, if you don't have someone who shows you the ropes on specific cloud VMs, it is actually not user-friendly at all. It's hard to use. Yeah. All right. Continuing on with the installation. So you can see it's just copy and paste if you just use my guide in conjunction with Eve Docker. Right. Now we have to configure all of our Ethereum validator clients. So it's going to be a terminal UI flow, very easy. I'm going to choose the Holesky testnet version. I'm going to choose Lido compatible node so that I can choose the community staking CSM node where I'll spin up the consensus, execution, and validator client. All right. I'm going to select Nimbus for my consensus client because it is a minority client, as well as Nethermine, another minority client. And then the rest we can set it as defaults, the rest of the settings. And now I'll generate some validator keys for my CSM. I'll select one, okay. And then I'll set a password. This password is to encrypt and decrypt your validator key stars. Okay, do you want to generate a new mnemonic? Yes, mnemonic is your seed phrase. Yeah, indeed, getting the hardware seems like a bit of a pain, and it's why there's only 6.5% of the network being solo stakers. I mean, not the only reason, but I personally think it's a huge reason. Because you can't even practice if you don't have your own hardware, unless you use this method. And I think we should ask Google to create dedicated credits package for aspiring solo stakers to learn. So it's doing all of these things on the background, which is basically everything I showed you earlier on all the manual steps. Right, let's just wait for a bit. Okay, now we are generating our validator keys. I'll choose my language, 3 for English, and then 4 for English again. And then this 24 words will be generated. This is similar to the seed phrase of your wallet, so keep it very secure. On the mainnet, do not save this digitally. Write it down on a piece of paper. Generate this, perform this step in itself on an air-gapped machine if possible. Otherwise, turn off your internet before you perform this step. Because if you lose this, you lose your validator keys. All right, so I'm just gonna save it in a notepad here because it's testnet. Yeah, because I will have to wait. Let me just save it quickly. The kernel CSM. Right. So press any key when you have written down your mnemonic. Then now you have to re-enter it so that you make sure that you have written it down correctly. Okay, so once you see this success message, your keys can be found in this location. Press any key to continue, right? And then some final instructions will be displayed by Eve Docker on how to fire up your node and also complete your bond collateral deposit on the Lido CSM widget. Press OK. Okay. Okay, in the meantime, where is the Lido CSM widget? So here, there's a mainnet version and a testnet version. So we'll go to the testnet version for now. Okay, let me just disconnect my wallet first so that you can see how it looks like from the get-go. So when you first come onto this page, you can click on Become a Node Operator, connect your wallet. Choose the address you want to connect with. Right? And then the first page you'll see is actually this. Right? We have to upload our deposit data, which is generated along with our validator key stars. So let me show you, where is it? Oh, it's not done yet. Okay. Let's just wait for a bit. Almost done.
Sam, meanwhile, I have a question as well.
Sure.
Like for large communities with treasuries where like tokens are sitting idle, like what method would you recommend for them to start with, like community staking or solo staking?
You mean large amounts of ETH treasuries?
Yeah, ETH or other tokens, like on different chains.
Yeah. I mean, I can't speak for other tokens, but for ETH, definitely consider running validator nodes because putting aside the incentives, right? It is the most secure way to put your assets to work. If you don't want to trust anyone else, right? Other than your own DAO members, then yeah, you can fully control your own destiny and fate. You're not subject to any rugs or like exploits of liquidity pools that you put your assets in. But of course, if you want a balance of security and also boosted incentives, I think the Lido CSM is a great place to explore. But having said that, because Lido designed the community staking module for solo and community stakers, for large stakers like DAOs, right? Our only ask is that let the Lido team know what keys you're running, especially if you're running large amount of keys, so that everyone can help to monitor collectively.
I see. Thank you. I think Ashraf has a follow-on question.
Yes, and let
Around-
me get to you, Ashraf, once I run the next command, which is start, because it takes some time to fire up. Okay. All right. Okay. So once I run if the start, right, all of the main components of my validator node, as well as all the supporting software, have now been started. Right. I will need a while to wait for a while before I run the keys import command, which will import the validator keys that I created, that I generated earlier, onto my validator client. And then afterwards, it can perform its duties. But first, I need to set some permissions on the folders. All right. Okay. Ashraf, can you explain validator key role? In this context, does one key equals one solo staker? All right. So no, the solo staker refers to the individual, right? The node operator, so to speak. Each node operator, each hardware can run multiple keys. Yeah. The theoretical limit should be around I think it's around 1,000. You can run 1,000 Ethereum validator keys, 32 ETH per key, so 32,000 ETH on one $800 machine. I mean, it's not ideal, but if you really want to push the limits, I think that's possible. Professionals should run, I think, between 200 to 300 keys per hardware. And I think the hardware should be a slightly more professional than the consumer level $800 one. Yeah. But long story short, it is actually a very scalable operation, which is why there's economies of scale for large professional node operators. All right. Okay. So before I run the keys import, now we need to upload our deposit data, right? The deposit data is basically a file containing instructions on how to fund or how to activate the validator key with the 32 ETH, right? And because Lido is going to be activating it on our behalf, we need to upload our deposit data to them, right? So we're just going to print out the contents of this deposit data file, and then copy the contents, and then go into this box here, paste it in. All right, and then we can submit keys. So the ETH amount here is 0 because I already have 3.85 ST ETH from my previous interaction with the Lido CSM. I mean, this is fake money lah, so I wish it were real. Yeah. Because it's testnet. Okay, so once you upload your deposit data, you can submit the transaction. And this part is simply like DeFi. You know, you're interacting with a DeFi protocol. Then you wait for a while for the transaction to be processed. Okay, Marlene has a question. Do you know if DVT solo staking is possible on a DApp node? Yes, the DApp node hardware is actually a very powerful device. You can even run, assuming you get a 4 terabyte SSD version, you can even run Ethereum validators and Gnosis validators on the same machine. And you can run DVTs on the same machine. Okay, so it's been uploaded. Okay, and now my key is here. How it'll look like is nothing yet because it takes some time for the validator key to be activated or deposited by Lido 1. And after it is deposited, it will take 16 to 24 hours to activate on the beacon chain, right? So in the meantime, we need to import our validator keys, this step, onto our validator client. Okay, so there'll be some warnings. Just read through carefully and acknowledge them. I have to enter the password to decrypt the validator key. Right, so you can see imported 1 keys. There'll be some warnings, you know, only import keys in one location. Failure to do so, we get you slash greater than 1 ETH penalty per validator key and forced exit. All right. So now we are actually done, and now we can go and review the logs. So this is a template command for printing out the logs. We just to replace the container name with one of these. And the three main containers we are concerned with is a consensus, execution, and validator containers. So let's go ahead and try validator first. Okay, so what we want to look out for are warnings and errors. Okay, there's some warnings. Beacon node not sync, understandable because it needs some time to sync at the start. Otherwise, it looks good. Let's see. Wait, one validators, that's correct. And yes. So what we have to wait for now is for the consensus client to sync. Sorry, the execution client to sync. The consensus client should already be synced. It takes just a few minutes on that front. So let's take a look at consensus and then execution. Okay, so looking good as well. No errors, no warnings. Okay, and then last but not least, execution. Okay, so you can see this progress bar here, 10%, 18.49%. It'll take around 5-6 hours for the execution client to sync on the Holoski testnet. On the mainnet, it'll take more than a day, maybe 1.5 days. All right, so there we have it. You know, it's super simple if you use some of these automation and abstraction tools that are available today to become a solo staker. You know, and if you want to recap on the steps, right? I've pre-recorded a video here as well. And if you want to explore some other options like ETH Pillar, there are also video guides available. Yeah. So I would say both are just as easy. Yeah, it's just a matter of preference, whether you want to use Docker or you want to use your host machine to install and run all of these services. Oh, Marlene, you are a Gnosis taker. Interesting. Congrats on the recent price pump. All right, guys. Any questions for me? But I may have Ashraf asked, I may have missed this, but what state of setup do you need to deposit the 1.5 ETH? Yes, so when you upload your deposit data onto the Lido CSM widget, yeah, you will need to provide the 1.5 ETH. I didn't need to provide anything because I already had some balance here. Yeah, but as you can see, just now it was 3.3, 3.3, 3.4 or something, right? And now it's 1.8.
Thank you, Sam, for the speed run. Let's look out for any more comments or questions before we wrap up. Like on the more curious side, like, do you know when the mainnet launches for Lido?
Hopefully tomorrow. Hopefully tomorrow. Wait. Let me pause my screen. I'll pull out something very quickly. Okay, so the DAO vote for launching the CSM. The main phase of the voting will end in 1.5 hours. We've already gotten quorum for the yes vote, right? After that, there'll be around a day of objection phase. So it's for anyone to say no. During the objection phase, you can only say no. You can only vote for no if you do vote for it. So if all goes well, 12 a.m. tomorrow, Singapore time. 12 a.m. tomorrow, Singapore. Is it correct? 12 a.m. on Saturday. Or 11:59 p.m. tomorrow, Singapore time, will be the launch of the Lido CSM early adoption period.
So basically in about 27 hours from now.
Yes.
Nice.
25.
25.
Yeah.
Now the hard part is just to get 1.5 ETH.
Nah, that's the easiest part, man. The hard part is actually all of this, right? Getting used to the command line, getting used to having your hardware, assembling it, all of that. Once you have the skill set down, I think buying the ETH is simple.
And how long does the cloud credits, like the $300 of cloud credits, last? Like
Yeah,
if we
so
want to...
if you really want to stretch it, then you can go for the 8 GB RAM machine, and then you'll last for 3.5 months. Otherwise, 2.5 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So you mentioned that most people, before you wrote the guides, most people are using hardware. I don't think I'm going to go the hardware route, but I wanted to ask, do you have a hardware guide that we could look at, like in terms of what type of hardware
Yes,
is recommended to buy?
I do. So within my guide itself, there'll be a section on procuring your hardware. Inside there'll be a recommended shopping list, right, along with the links, assuming they're still valid, of course. Should probably clean this up. Still broken. Yeah. Yes. So yeah, there's a hardware guide, so you can follow it.
Awesome, thanks.
But are you gonna use a cloud service to run this? It's
I'm
gonna
gonna
be
use
expensive, but it's
I'm gonna use cloud probably to get started, and then over time look at hardware.
But if you use cloud for mainnet, it's gonna be quite expensive. There are some options, of course. Previously I looked at this Netcup, which made the most sense, but I think it requires a bit more technical expertise. Yeah.
Okay, so would your recommendation be to rather go hardware for mainnet?
Yes, because you can get hardware for between 800 to 1,008 USD. Your cloud expenses are gonna be at least 200 USD a month.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And in terms of maintaining the hardware, is it just like a PC that's in a corner of a room
Yes,
somewhere? Do
correct.
you need?
Exactly.
Okay, so
PC
it's
in the
just like
corner
running
room.
in the background.
Correct. Plugged into your router. The most maintenance you have to do, right, is actually cleaning the dust around it. Otherwise, I spend around 15-20 minutes per month on my hardware. On the software part of my hardware. Yeah.
Wonderful. Do you use Intel NUCs or?
Yes, I use Intel NUCs. Purely because it's the most value for money, or the most suited for this use case. Yeah. Otherwise, you can also use the AMD Ryzen 5600G CPU, also quite reasonable. And then the casing, right, is something called desk mini. Is it called desk mini? Yes, something like that. Yes, this. Yes, S-Rock desk mini. Yeah. This one. Yes. So also very slick. It's just that it stands vertically. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. So anything to look out for, like when the mainnet launches? So we just can follow the steps, like the Lido web page that you showed, and we just follow the steps from there and like follow the hardware guide on your website.
Yes, yeah. So within my guide itself, under Lido CSM, it will also bring you to the official Lido CSM operator portal. Why is it so slow? Which looks like this. All right. So this is primary information, right? What's on my guide, I try to make it very layman, very simplified. Like if you want the primary information, right, it'll be from this page itself. You know, there's even more integrations: DevNode, Sage, Ethereum, eDocker. Yeah. So who was it that had a DevNode? Marlene.
Marlene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, you can download the CSM package from the DevNode directly to participate.
That sounds useful. I'm really not comfortable with using the
Command line, is it?
yeah.
Yeah, it takes some to getting used to, to be honest. And why, hence why it's important to have practice time or water time, right? using cloud credits.
I honestly don't run the node anymore. I just put down the nodes, but I should try it again since it's sitting around. So
Yeah, you should. And you're not even running it for Gnosis right now?
no, I had like back then in my apartment there was some external router and I couldn't access it, and there were some ports or something that didn't work properly.
Okay, so then you have to come to my guide and look at networking and network security. Wait, let me see.
Oh, nice.
Advanced
Yeah.
networking, yes. You need to configure this, right? So there are some instructions here, including setting up a VPN. Yeah.
Thank you. It's a great guide and
Thank you.
quite a nice community.
And feel free to reach out to me if you need any help as well.
Thanks a lot.
The networking component is actually one of the most highest friction process for solo stakers, because most of us don't even touch our routers in our daily lives. And it doesn't help that the UI UX of all of the routers, right, is different, one, and also very bad.
Yeah, it really depends on the model as well, I guess.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Sam. Like, we'll be recording this, like we already recorded this session and we'll be sharing it with the broader community. And like, just like you have a mainnet launch coming up soon, like I just like to like briefly announce that we launched or announced the kernel block, the next kernel block today, like an hour ago. So if any one of you know technologists who would be interested in like these kinds of topics and exploring these kinds of building related projects, like feel free to send the kernel application link to them. So yeah, like I know there's many kernel fellows already in Sam's Telegram channel. Like most of the Ethereum Singapore folks are a part of kernel, but we would like to get more technologists who are building in the peer-to-peer space. So yeah, just wanted to share this announcement before closing.
Awesome. Well, I'll share with my community.
Thank you. And thank you, Sam, for taking your time and like doing another speed run beyond your recorded speed runs. And
Happy to. Always happy to do it, man.
yeah, thank you. And once we get the blog started, it would be wonderful to invite you again to like get to know the updates in this particular field after the mainnet launches and how like things are progressing on that front.
Sure, we'd love to make a reappearance.
Wonderful. Thank you. Like, if there are any questions, like I think people have joined your Telegram group chat. They can like discuss questions there. Otherwise, I'll surface the questions to you if there are any questions from kernel. So thank you, Sam.
Thank you. Thank you, Sid, for having me. Thanks, guys, for taking the time. Have a good evening.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.